You are watching the Elevation Mentor Show, and today I have a very special guest, Byron Brazier. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'd like to start out by having you tell us who you are and what do you do.
Okay, J.Byron Brazier. I am the lead developer for the Woodlawn Central project in Woodlawn in Chicago South Side. I have a background. I'm an artist by trade and by just natural desire, and really got into development from the need to see more creative creatives on the South Side. So I opened my first business in 2007, which was an art gallery and event center. And then I started, really getting into how the community worked from the municipal side, making contacts with aldermen and making contacts with state reps, and started doing feasibility studies because there's a huge barrier and a huge gap in the development on the south side of Chicago. And just fast forward to today, I spent a lot of time overseas, just really studying culture and studying urban design and urban planning, particularly from the tourism and local entertainment spectrum. And so Woodlawn Central is really an amalgamation of almost 20 years of really trying to create this nucleus of culture that is driven for us by us. And so Woodlawn Central is a almost $1 billion project, 870 units, 215,000 square feet of commercial space, Blackbox Theater, vertical farming, hotel, lots of parking.
Sounds exciting.
Yes, yes. It's a labor of love.
Okay. That sparked my interest when you said Black Box Theater.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of theaters, in our community, and the theater that I'm using as a precedent for our theater is the Briar Street Theater on Halsted in Lakeview, which is the home of the Blue Man Group. And with the Blue Man Group, I think that says something about big things come in small packages.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of talent that doesn't get highlighted
Mhm.
in the way that it should, from a local standpoint. So a lot of times we go from our our singing in our bathroom to some of the largest stages without really being able to have that practice time and getting some more of that mileage, so that we get to understand our voice, we get to understand our gifts and our talents, whether it be dance or whether it be acting or singing or music. This is really kind of a training ground, is built for a training ground to prepare people from the community to be on larger stages and to excel as well.
Okay. So I heard you say that you are an artist.
Mhm.
Um, and so why did you decide to get into real estate?
It was by happenstance in a little ways. My grandfather, Bishop Brazier, actually did about 17 developments throughout his tenure as a pastor and a community developer. So I think it's a little bit of, it's in my blood to do it. And then I also, my mom also did, was a broker for 30 years and had her own brokerage firm that she worked out of the house in the early 90s. And so whenever she would go on showings, I'd go with her, and she really taught me the ins and outs of real estate. And I think a part of me has always been to fulfill the gaps, being able to have a few resources, and to be able to understand the need of wanting to make my community the community that I want to live in. And by doing that, you can't be successful and then move from your community. You have to be successful and build your community. And so whether you're an artist or whether you are a developer, I think those two things kind of go hand in hand because you have to be creative in order to vision things that don't exist.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear you. Build your community.
Mm-hmm.
And so you already talked about it, but can you like describe more what kind of real estate you do?
Yeah, so I'm on the development side, and so as a developer, the the concept is to actually pull the team together around a vision that you have as a developer to see something created. And every developer doesn't do everything. So you have your commercial developers, you have your residential developers, your cultural developers. I particularly, when I talk to people about development and being a developer, I say I am a community developer who does real estate. Because I think it's important that we delineate some of the actions of a lot of developers, especially this push in gentrification and displacement, right? And so I want to make sure that I differentiate myself in the fact that I'm not here to gentrify my own community. And so I pull in all the architects, I pull in all the engineers, I do, the feasibility studies and the market studies, and really focus on the communications and how to market the project. So I sit kind of at the top of the pyramid as far as the real estate process goes, and then our partners, they do all of the leasing and or sales and management.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real interesting what you're doing. So where's the funding coming from for the project?
So we are a bit of an anomaly as we own all 18 acres that the site sits on, which is which the church is the centerpiece of. And so my grandfather, he was very forward thinking, and he made sure that the church had plenty of parking. And so 8 acres of the campus, which is where you see all the buildings or will be, are all unencumbered. That means that we owe no debt on the land. And so what we're able to do is we're able to pull equity out of the land and to go through entitlements. And once you get into entitlements, then within the industry they call it a real project because the city is on board and everybody's on board. And so a lot of the early on, which we call the pre-development funding, is coming from us. Once that funding, once our pre-development is completed, now there's even more equity within the project, and that's where our partners will come in, who have even more assets, and we will leverage their assets to then get the 100 million, 200 million, $300 million loans. A lot of that also comes from subsidies from the government. We are committed to doing 30% affordable housing, and with affordable housing comes the subsidies to do so. And so there's you've 9% tax credits, you've got 4% tax credits. There's grants from the state that are available. There's grants from the federal government for transportation that's available. There's IDA, and so there's a lot of different avenues, which we call a capital stack. And so we're in the process of building that capital stack on top of our own equity.
Okay. That's real
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah,
And that's a great thing what you're doing.
thank you.
Um, Affordable housing. Can you define what affordable housing is?
I'd love to. Because I think affordable housing gets thrown into the basket of low income housing, and it is not. Affordable housing is housing for people with that are around a 60% or 80% of their income. So 20% or 40% gets deducted from the overall market cost of the apartments, and then gets allocated to the end user or the renter for that. So I would classify affordable housing as student housing, artist live work housing, senior housing, workforce housing, and veterans housing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Um, so for the people watching, so for the people out here who they're not where they desire to be, and they're looking at you doing all these great things, what advice would you give them?
Keep going. You know, see you have a vision, make sure you exhaust all your resources, do a lot of research, make sure that when you're presenting your vision, that is in the narrative of the industry, but you're also telling the story about why you want to do what you're doing, especially when it comes from our community, because a lot of real estate is evaluated based upon the income of the entire community. And if you are from the community and you're looking to do a development or you're looking to get into real estate, learn every single aspect of it. Learn the commercial side, learn the industrial side, learn the residential side. So that way you can really have a much more rounded vision. And I think for us in our community, we want to not just build buildings, but we want to build each other. And the way to do that is to really understand how important it is for us to have certain things within our community that bind our culture together.
Okay, I like that. Uh, keep going and explain to people why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's, when you look across the country and you look at our communities, even though we are in different locations, we all suffer from the same condition, which is economic and social, right? And without having to relitigate our history, because we are all very aware of how we got here, the
Right.
question becomes, how do we get out of this, how do we transform, right? How do we go from what we understand to what we want to be? And a lot of that is really a policy. It's part of policy. And so when we are also looking at our community, we have to look at our representatives and how we vote certain people in to represent us on the local level. We cannot protest our way out of poverty, right? And we can't march our way into prosperity. Poverty is very systemic and it is policy driven. And so when we elect people, we have to elect people who understand policy and how to then adjust that policy. So when we're talking about, let's say, Woodlawn Central, for example, which is in Woodlawn, which has a $40,000 AMI, which is an annual median income. The national average of a community to do market rate is 75,000. So
Okay.
when they evaluate our community, they say, well, this community only makes $40,000 a year collectively. So we can only do low income and only do affordable housing when the need and the necessity is to have multi-income housing. So that way there is a circulation of dollars coming in through the community where people can actually build their businesses within the community, right? Because these developers, they come in, they say, we only want to do the housing. We're not going to do any theaters. We're not going to do any vertical farming. We're not going to do any environmental sustainability. We're not doing any of that, right? Because we want our fees. And we want to get out and so we can get to our next project, right? And so you want to make sure that, I think the front line is making sure that we have the right people in office, making sure that that doesn't happen, and that certain spaces like Woodland Central, we're on the lakes, we're on the almost the lakefront. And so what we should be borrowing from the neighboring lakefront community to boost our AMI, that when we do the market study, it doesn't look like we're a low income community, right? It looks like we can now handle that kind of density in a mixed income community. So, that's really important.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. I try to condense it, but this is, development in our community is very layered, right? And there's a lot of moving parts,
A lot to it.
and we have to be, really specific about what we want.
Okay. Um, sounds good. So, what is your favorite book?
My favorite book. I have so many books. Um, I think one of my favorites is Black Indian. It is a book about the Black Indians who were here fighting off colonialism 300 years before Columbus landed. And talks about, the process of the melanated indigenous that were here at
Mm,
one point was Turtle Island, right? And so my third, both my third great grandmothers on both of my parents' side were what they call Indian. And so I've always been fascinated about our legacy and our history. So I read a lot of those books, and then other stuff is very tactical.
okay. I never heard of it. I have to check it out.
Yes, it's a great book.
Um, so okay, so just real quickly, look like we have a couple of minutes left. Are you single or married?
Single. Single. Well, I could say I'm married to the job. I feel like a cop sometimes. And so yeah, I'm very single.
Okay. Can you share one of your life lessons with us?
Life lessons. There's a couple. Don't do business with your best friend, and always work with a contract.
Yeah, yep, that's important.
Yes,
Get
yes.
everything in writing.
Everything is in writing, and always be mindful when people want to work with you without a contract, um, because it just never turns out well. And I think that's a huge life lesson for me, because there are things that I've done that I can't get credit for because I didn't have a contract.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
Where can people go to find you if they want to reach out to you?
LinkedIn, J.Byron Brazier on LinkedIn, also LinkedIn at the Woodlawn Central project, and those are my main medias. I'm a pretty simple guy, so I like to have one platform that I work off of. And then
Okay.
you can also visit our website at woodlawncentral.com.
Okay. Okay. And did you have any last words for the audience?
I believe that we are at a really interesting time in America's history. And we are in the fourth industrial revolution of technology with the rise of AI. And not to be afraid of AI, and to look at AI as an opportunity to learn new skills, to have a broader understanding of the future and where you fit in it, and to just make sure that we stay open-minded and stay diligent on our focus and our calling, and no matter what that is. And so that is something that I think is really important for all generations.
Okay. Don't be afraid of AI. Stay open, stay diligent.
It's diligent, yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was great having you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.